When the letter arrived, I almost threw it away. It looked like junk mail. A thick, yellowed envelope, no return address, my name written in a spidery cursive that made my skin prickle. The handwriting was so uneven it looked almost alive, as if each letter strained to crawl off the page. The only reason I opened it was because it felt heavy, as if the paper inside carried more than words. Inside was a single page. Miss Clara West, we regret to inform you of the passing of your uncle, Edgar Hawthorne. Per the terms of his will, you have inherited his property at 19 Raven Street. You are advised to take possession immediately. Sincerely, Wells and Cartwright Solicitors. I didn't have an Uncle Edgar. At least not one I knew. My mother had never mentioned him. Not once. She died 3 years ago, taking most of her secrets with her. For the rest of the day, I stared at that letter, wondering if it was a scam. I even called the solicitor's office. A man with a voice like gravel confirmed it was real. He wouldn't explain how I was related to Edgar Hawthorne, only that I should collect the keys as soon as possible. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of the house. Calling it a house was generous. It was a looming, 3-story carcass of rotting wood and peeling paint, its gabled roof hunched like a bad posture. A rust-stained rain gutter dangled from the side like a broken limb. The windows were narrow and dark, reflecting nothing. A wrought iron fence surrounded the yard, its spikes rusted but still sharp. The garden was overgrown, thorny bushes curling inwards as if trying to swallow the place whole. The front door groaned when I pushed it open. The air inside was heavy, unmoving, like it had been trapped for decades. It smelled of mothballs, old paper, and something faintly metallic, like rust or dried blood. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor as I explored. Dust coated everything. The grand staircase, the cracked mirrors, the faded rugs. A chandelier hung above the hallway, its crystals dulled to a sickly yellow. The walls were lined with portraits, pale, stern people in old-fashioned clothes. Their eyes seemed to follow me, not in a playful Mona Lisa way, but in a cold, calculating way. One painting in particular drew me in, a man with deep-set eyes, thin lips, and a scar along his jaw. His gaze was hard, unblinking, and I felt an odd pressure in my chest looking at him. A brass plaque beneath read, Edgar Hawthorne. I found the bedroom on the second floor, small but serviceable. The bed was already made, which was odd, given no one had lived here in years. Or so I thought. In the corner stood a narrow wardrobe, its mirror cracked in a spiderweb pattern. I opened it, expecting moth-eaten clothes. But it was empty, except for a single black coat hanging in the center. Far too new for a place like this. That night, the noises started. At exactly 3:14 a.m., I woke to a faint knocking, not from the front door, from somewhere above me. 3 slow, deliberate taps, then silence. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure it could be heard upstairs. I told myself it was the house settling, or maybe a branch scraping the roof. The next night, same time, the knocking came again. But this time it was followed by a voice, low, distant but unmistakable. Clara. I froze. My name whispered through layers of wood and darkness. It came from the attic. I'd noticed the attic door on my first walk through, at the far end of the hallway, locked with a brass keyhole. I didn't have the key, and maybe that was a blessing. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I had the sickening feeling that whatever was up there knew I was here now, and it was waiting. By morning, I convinced myself it was just a dream. But the air in the house felt heavier, and every creak of the floorboards seemed deliberate. As if the house itself was aware of my presence. While making coffee in the kitchen, I spotted something strange. On the windowsill, faint marks in the dust. Not fingerprints, but scratches, as if something with claws had been there recently. The glass pane above them was cracked from the inside. I told myself I'd leave after the weekend. But the truth? Some part of me needed to know why this place was given to me. And what, or who, was waiting in that attic. The morning after the second night of knocking, I decided to explore more of the house in daylight. Somehow, things felt less threatening with the sun pouring through the grimy windows, though less threatening was not the same as safe. I started with the study on the first floor. The room smelled of tobacco and something faintly sweet, almost like decay masked by perfume. Dust floated in the sunlight like tiny golden insects, lazily drifting between shelves crammed with books. The titles were odd. A few were standard: history, philosophy, gardening, but most were unsettling. Anatomy of the Soul, The Veil Between, The Occult Traditions of Hawthorne County. Many had no author listed. A large oak desk sat in the center, covered with papers yellowed to the color of tea. Most were letters, written in that same spidery handwriting I'd seen on the inheritance envelope. Many were addressed to someone named M. The content was strange. Discussions about preparations, alignments, and the sacrifice of the unwanted. One letter stopped me cold. Clara is the last. She must be brought here before the 13th moon. If she refuses, she will be made to accept. I didn't know whether to feel sick or afraid. Maybe both. The desk drawers were locked, but one slid open easily. Inside was a brass key, heavy and ornate, its handle carved into the shape of an eye. I didn't need to guess what it opened. My stomach turned cold. I pocketed the key but didn't go to the attic right away. Something told me I wasn't ready. That night, I went to bed early, hoping to sleep through 3:14 a.m. It didn't work. I woke up at 3:12, not because of the knocking this time, but because I felt it. The pressure. Like the air in the room had grown thick enough to touch. The shadows in the corners looked wrong, as if they'd shifted slightly toward me. At 3:14, the knocking began. 3 slow, deliberate taps from above, then the voice again, closer, clearer. Clara, open the door. My skin turned to ice. Every part of me screamed to stay in bed, to wait for daylight, to burn the whole damn house down if necessary. But my hand was already in my pocket, feeling the weight of the key. I don't remember deciding to move. One moment I was in bed. The next I was barefoot in the hallway, the cold wood biting at my feet. The attic door stood at the far end, looming in the dim light from a single flickering bulb. When I slid the key into the lock, it turned too easily. The smell hit me first, damp, metallic, and faintly sweet, the same scent from the study. My flashlight beam sliced into the darkness, revealing stacks of old furniture, trunks and boxes covered with white sheets. Dust swirled in the air, disturbed by my entrance. Something moved in the far corner. I froze. Heart hammering in my ears. Slowly, my flashlight found it. A rocking chair, swaying gently, though the air was perfectly still. Beside it was a small table with a dusty porcelain teacup, half full of something black and viscous. Then I saw the portraits, dozens of them leaning against the attic walls. Not the formal, oil-painted kind from downstairs, but photographs. All black and white, all of people with their eyes scratched out. The scratches were deep, cutting into the paper as if done in rage. In the center of the room was a trunk. Its lid was ajar, just enough to show the edge of something pale inside. My throat tightened as I knelt and lifted it. It was a dress, a child's dress, and beneath it, bones, small ones, arranged neatly like someone had taken great care with them. A sound behind me made my flashlight tremble. Not knocking, not whispering. Breathing. Slow, steady, right at my back. I spun around. The beam caught nothing but swirling dust. But the rocking chair had stopped moving. I bolted, slamming the attic door behind me and locking it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the bedroom with the lamp on, staring at the shadows until the sun came up. I told myself I'd leave in the morning. But the problem with telling yourself something over and over is that it starts to sound like a lie. Because deep down, I knew. Whatever was in that attic wasn't done with me yet. And neither was Uncle Edgar. I didn't leave the next morning. I wish I could say it was bravery. But the truth is, I couldn't. It wasn't that my car wouldn't start. It did. Perfectly. I even loaded my bag and drove down the gravel road toward town. But after 5 minutes, I found myself back in the driveway without remembering turning around. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and my throat felt tight, like I'd been underwater too long. The house stood there, silent, as if it had been watching me the whole time. By noon, clouds had swallowed the sun. The air was damp and heavy, pressing against my skin. I tried calling a friend, anyone, but my phone had no signal, not even the weak bar I sometimes caught near the kitchen window. That was when I noticed the clock in the hallway. It was an old pendulum clock, one I hadn't paid much attention to before. But now it was ticking in perfect rhythm. Tick, tock, tick, tock, die. And every few seconds, the pendulum's reflection in the glass warped, just slightly, like the wood behind it was bending. Pinned to the clock's face was another note, written in the same spidery handwriting. 3 nights remain before the 13th moon. My chest tightened. 13th moon? I had no idea what that meant, but it didn't sound like a holiday. That night, I didn't wait for 3:14. I went to the attic early, determined to see it on my own terms. The key was cold in my hand. Inside, the air was even thicker, heavier than before, as if the attic had been holding its breath. My flashlight beam caught the rocking chair again, but this time, someone was sitting in it. It was a woman. Her hair hung in tangled ropes over her face. Her dress was stained in patches I didn't want to think about. She didn't move, didn't look at me, but the chair swayed gently under her weight. I tried to speak, to ask who she was, but my voice came out hoarse. The woman's head tilted just slightly, and I saw her hands resting in her lap, cradling a small blackened locket. I took one step toward her. The attic floor groaned. Her head snapped up, and I saw her face. Her eyes were gone. 2 black hollows stared at me, and from deep inside them came that same voice I'd heard through the ceiling. "Clara, open the door." I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the trunk of bones. The air felt like it was collapsing inward, pressing me toward her. My flashlight flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. In the darkness, the knocking began again. Not from the floor above or the walls this time, but from inside my head. I don't remember leaving the attic. I only remember finding myself in the kitchen, my hands gripping the counter so hard my knuckles ached. The brass key was gone. The next 2 days blurred together. The first day, I heard footsteps at all hours. They never followed me directly, but they always seemed one room away. My reflection in the hallway mirror began moving a fraction slower than I did, sometimes smiling faintly when my own lips stayed still. The second day, I woke up to find every door in the house standing open, including the attic. The rocking chair was visible from the bottom of the stairs, swaying in slow, even arcs. I closed every door, but each time I passed the hallway clock, the note on it had changed. The number of nights remaining had been crossed out. The handwriting was shakier. The morning of the 3rd day, I found a package on the porch. There was no address, no postage, just my name scrawled across the paper. Inside was a single sheet of parchment, and on it a phrase repeated over and over. "If she refuses, she will be made to accept." Beneath the words was a date. Tomorrow. I started pacing. Every creak of the floor felt like it came from beneath me. I thought about breaking a window and running, but when I tried to smash the kitchen glass with a chair, it didn't break. It rippled like water, and my reflection in it grinned. That night, the knocking came earlier. Midnight. Then 1 a.m., then 2. Each time the voice was closer, warmer, almost coaxing. "It's time, Clara. The moon is almost full." I pressed my hands to my ears, but it didn't help. The voice wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was coming from behind my ribs. When I finally looked out the window, the clouds had broken, revealing a huge, pale moon, larger than I'd ever seen it. My chest felt heavy. I felt pulled. Somewhere in the house, a door creaked open. I knew which one. The attic was waiting, and this time, I knew if I went up there, I wouldn't be coming back down alone. The night of the 13th moon arrived without warning. Not that I'd been keeping track. I hadn't slept more than an hour at a time for days. Every sound felt amplified. The scrape of a branch against the siding sounded like nails. My own heartbeat felt too loud, too uneven. The house was still, but not silent. I could feel it breathing. By evening, the moon had risen, huge, swollen, and pale, like an unblinking eye staring directly at me. Its light bled through every window, bleaching the walls into ghostly shades. I didn't eat. I didn't move much. I just sat in the kitchen with my back to the door, staring at the brass key lying in the middle of the table. I hadn't seen it since the attic. Now it was back. It was cold, almost wet when I picked it up. The hallway clock chimed once. Not the soft, measured tick it had before, but a deep, resonant tone that rattled the dishes in the cupboards. Then came the first knock. Bang. It shook the walls. My teeth vibrated. I didn't want to move, but my legs carried me anyway. Through the hallway, past the mirror where my reflection lagged behind again. Only this time, it wasn't lagging. It was waiting. Another knock. Louder. My reflection mouthed the words before the voice reached me. Clara, open the door. The attic stairs unfolded on their own, dropping with a thud. I climbed, not because I wanted to, but because the air behind me was pressing, pushing me upward like a hand between my shoulder blades. The attic was different this time. It wasn't dark. Moonlight poured through a single window that I didn't remember being there. Dust floated in the air like tiny silver sparks. The rocking chair was still, empty. In its place stood the woman. She was closer now, her face clearer. The hollows where her eyes should have been were wet, glistening, as though something inside was alive. Her mouth curved into a smile that didn't reach her cheeks. In her hands was the locket. She held it out to me. The chain swung like a pendulum, glinting in the moonlight. I wanted to back away, but my feet rooted to the floor. Take it, she whispered. The voice wasn't in my head anymore. It was here, in the room, warm and damp against my ear. I reached out, my fingers brushing the metal. The moment I touched it, the attic tilted. My stomach lurched. The walls stretched, the floorboards bending under my weight. My breath came in shallow gasps. And then, I was somewhere else. A hallway. Narrow. Endless. Doors on both sides, each one slightly open. From inside each room came soft noises. Whispering, sobbing, the sound of something heavy dragging across the floor. The woman was ahead of me, moving without touching the ground. She stopped at one door and pushed it open wider. Inside was me. I was sitting on the attic floor, staring at the rocking chair. My lips were moving, whispering something over and over, but I couldn't hear the words. I stumbled back, slamming into a door on the opposite wall. It creaked open, revealing another me. This one standing at the kitchen window, smiling at my reflection, which wasn't smiling back. Door after door, version after version, each one worse than the last. My body twisted, my face hollowed, my eyes black pits like hers. The woman turned to me. You see now, she said. There's always a Clara, always a house, always the 13th moon. My throat was dry. What do you want from me? Her smile widened. To let you stay. The hallway vanished. I was back in the attic, clutching the locket so tightly it cut into my palm. I tried to drop it, but my hand wouldn't open. The woman stepped closer until her face was inches from mine. I could smell earth on her breath, damp and rotten. You will open the door, she said, and I will walk through. Or, her voice dropped lower, almost tender. I will wait until you become me. The attic door behind me slammed shut. The lock turned on its own. My lungs felt full of cold water. The knocking began again, but now it was coming from inside the attic. from somewhere beyond the far wall. Each thud made the boards bulge outward, bending like skin over a fist. I realized what the door was. It wasn't the attic entrance. It wasn't the hallway clock. It was in the wall itself. A shape, human-sized, outlined by cracks in the plaster. With every knock, the cracks spread. Something was pushing through. The woman stepped aside, gesturing toward it like a hostess inviting me in. The wall split. A pale hand reached out, long fingers tipped with nails the color of old bone. Then another hand, then a face identical to mine, except for the eyes. Empty, black, glistening. She smiled. I dropped the key. The thing stepped forward. My body locked in place as it leaned close, pressing its cold lips to my ear. "It's time, Clara." I didn't scream. I couldn't. The attic went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was in the rocking chair, swaying gently. My hands were folded in my lap, cradling the locket. Across from me stood a woman, pale, shaking, her eyes wide. She looked just like me. And somewhere deep in my chest, the knocking began again.